Hi, I'm Noah Scott, and today I'm going to be telling you about my little big history project, which is the domestication of the dog. Dogs are known as man's best friend, but did you know that dogs have been man's best friend for over tens of thousands of years? To bring more light on this subject is my dog, Mojo. Everyone, here's my dog. Hi, I'm Mojo, Noah's dog, and today I'm going to be teaching you about the domestication of dogs. But before we get into that, we really need to talk about the Big Bang. The Big Bang is known as the scientific explanation of how our universe came to be. Supposedly, the Big Bang was a rapid expansion of matter outwards until the matter burst and created the universe as we know it today. Think of the Big Bang as a balloon being filled with air. The balloon keeps expanding and expanding the more air that's put into it, but pops when the air has reached its limit. Instead of air being released from the balloon, think new chemicals and matter instead. The matter created in the Big Bang created stars. Stars are giant balls of gas that are huge and illuminate in the night sky. The stars go through a cycle called the star cycle, which is basically the life and death of a star. When a star dies, they produce new elements, which in turn created what we know today. Two of these newfound elements that created were helium and hydrogen. Helium and hydrogen were so important because they were basically the mother and father of every other element besides the man-made ones. The new elements were not the only things that helped create the Earth and planets that we have today. Gravity had an important impact because gravity had a form of gravity called accretion. Accretion is when two meteors collide with the force of gravity. For thousands of years, they would keep colliding and colliding and colliding, and that's how a planet will form, just because of meteors coming together and forming one giant meteor, basically, or a planet. Before we get on to this next important threshold in the domestication of dogs, which is life, we need to wait for the Earth to cool down. Before wolves and humans became the complex animals that they are today, they evolved from prokaryotic cells. Prokaryotic cells are single-celled organisms that have no nucleus and need heat and energy to survive. However, a billion years after that, prokaryotic cells evolved to eukaryotic cells, which now have DNA and a nucleus and became way more complex. Due to eukaryotic cells becoming so much more complex, 1.5 billion years after that fact, they became multicellular, which basically meant they could maintain homeostasis easier and became even more complex because all these cells could have different jobs. Again, due to it becoming even more complex, 500 million years after that fact, brains started to evolve, which made nerve cells, a spinal cord, start to form, and that these organisms, and now animals, became way smarter. Now that these animals became way smarter, they started to move to land. As they moved to land, they started to evolve into mammals. They were reptiles before, and now that they're mammals, they are warm-blooded, have fur, and they don't lay eggs. Their eggs are inside of them, and they reproduce sexually. The elements also had a huge impact on these animals. Whether humans or wolves, during this whole time that they're evolving, helium, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, they all helped maintain homeostasis. And that's still the thing today. All these elements help maintain homeostasis in the environments around us and in the environment within ourselves. Now that humans and wolves started to stop evolving, they started hunting and gathering to survive. Humans will use a process called collective learning, which they would talk to people around them, maybe different groups of people, teaching each other how to survive in different environments, and so on and so forth. An example of this would be one person from one group would teach another how to use a spear, and the other from the other group would teach someone how to use a bow and arrow. But during this time, wolves were also hunting. This is how they got their food due to them being carnivores. Wolves and humans probably collided heads a lot due to the fact that they were fighting for the same game. Some of this game could have been deer, gazelle, and other large, peaceful animals that could be easily hunted. You may be wondering up to this point, Why does this matter? We're talking about the domestication of wolves. Wouldn't this make them enemies? Well, no. You see, humans leave scrap. They leave meat on the bones. They usually don't eat as much as a wolf does. They don't eat the raw meat. And that will attract wolves over to their campsites. They would smell from the meat from miles and miles away and would come and eat their scraps. This will form a kind of weird relationship between the wolf and the human. The human will throw them the scrap, and the wolf will stick around and eat the scrap. Since they would stick around, they started making homes over there, the wolves. They would start to form bonds with the humans, they would start to love each other, and they would start basically being domesticated. Before we talk about them really being domesticated, we need to talk about the next threshold, where domestication of wolves had such a big impact. This next important threshold was agriculture. Agriculture was basically the first time humans learned to farm. Farming made it so humans would stay in one place for a long period of time. Instead of going out and hunting for their food, they could stay in one spot and learn new skills that could help them in their life. This caused civilizations to emerge because people would go in large groups and stay in one place. And this made such a large impact on wolves because they started staying with the humans. They started to evolve further into dogs. And now that wolves were now dogs, they were less aggressive, they were kind of smaller, they weren't as muscular, and they were known as a luxury. You could find them on the Silk Road, you could find them being sold and traded, and you could barter for them, and you could basically own a dog now. Now that we're in the threshold of the modern revolution, there was a lot of trade between New World and Old World. One of those main trades was a dog. Dogs could be used for hunting and for farming and for herding sheep and cattle. Dogs could have also been used for security. The future is a mystery in the eyes of the domestication of dogs. Dogs have now been fully domesticated, but now I believe that since they are fully domesticated, they could be trained to do unlikely tasks that you might not be able to think dogs could be able to do. Some of these tasks are, but not limited to, advanced military service, such as being trusted to do more unlikely jobs you would not be able to think a dog could do, and advanced farming. Instead of just being able to herd, maybe they could also be able to help farm. Even though we don't know what the future is for the dog, I cannot wait to see how they advance in society and how they advance in the jobs that they are able to do.